co-founder of Plum. And we are helping enterprise companies future-proof their businesses by unlocking human potential. And so you're going to hear a bit more about the future of work, but I'm going to be a spoiler and tell you a little bit about it first, because that's the problem that we're solving. What's interesting, though, is that I was talking to one of the partners at Deloitte's leadership practice, and he was saying, interestingly enough, 4 years ago, none of Deloitte's customers were talking about the future of work. The idea of the future of work has been a term that the consulting firms have been able to create, a term that has created a real fear in CEOs. Are you going to be the CEO of the next company like Blockbuster that's become bankrupt because they couldn't keep up with the newest business model? If you own a bank or if you own an insurance company, how is the automation of the banking industry going to potentially completely displace your business? If you are an insurance company, self-driving cars, what's going to happen with your claims rep roles? They're not going to be needed as much. In the last 3 years, consulting companies have educated the CEOs of enterprise companies about the future of work. Half of today's jobs are going to be displaced by automation in the next 3 to 15 years. 65% of today's students are going to be applying for jobs that don't even exist yet. So how does an enterprise company manage to completely change the way that they've historically been handling talent to have now an agile workforce? There's a real fear, but there isn't really a technology solution right now in the market other than going to the consulting firms or continuing to use old systems that have been in place that weren't really set up to handle that agile workforce. On top of really talking about the disruption that automation is going to create to the workforce, there's also changing nature of work and the length of time people are going to be working. So if somebody is 70 years old right now, they probably have the opportunity to retire around 61, meaning that they worked for about 40 years. If somebody is 10 years old right now, they are going to be working until they are 80 years old. They're going to be working for 60 years. A big reason for that is the lifespan of a 10-year-old is going to be about 20 years longer. A 10-year-old should live till about 102. About 102. And so that means that they are going to be working until they are 80 years old. Little frightening. So what happens when we think about the traditional way that we've been managing talent? People at the enterprise level have been locked into siloed careers. If you are a BDR, then you often will become an account executive, and somehow because you're a good account executive, that means you should manage a whole bunch of people and become a VP of sales. And so what happens is that when you're locked into these silos, we then have relied on education and work experience as guidance for telling us how somebody's going to perform in the future. Frankly, the research has been very clear in industrial organizational psychology, concrete over the last 30 years. Skills and knowledge, where you previously worked, are not predictors of future performance. But in a traditional enterprise career path, where we're following that same ladder that all of the people before us have followed, we could be lazy and use poor quality data. The threat now is, with AI, is that now we're seeing AI automating and speeding up that poor quality skills and knowledge data. At the Society for Industrial Organizational Psychology annual conference last year, they had an employment lawyer go on stage and talk about what happens when AI looks at pattern recognition from poor quality data, garbage in, garbage out. In the employment side of things, what happens is it looks at the past patterns, it looks at social media data. They didn't necessarily have permission to look at social media data to use it to evaluate employees, but they did. They look at performance reviews, they look at resumes, and all of this pattern matching with the job reviews, the job descriptions. And what happens is that the black box predicted that the top performers at this organization all had these three things in common. If they did, they were more likely to be promoted or be told they should be hired as a top performer. So the AI said that if somebody was named Jared, played lacrosse, and read Harry Potter at that organization, they should be hired or promoted. None of that data is job relevant. And so what we've done at Plum is looked at industrial organizational psychology and said, what is the most reliable data? Well, it's something called talents. It's the combination of psychometric data of somebody's personality, priorities, and cognitive ability in terms of learning net new things on the job and social intelligence. And what happens is when you start looking at talents, you see that they are 4 times more accurate than skills and knowledge at predicting on-the-job success. We can use AI to help us scale psychometric data that has traditionally only been available either at screening directors and above or very high level volume role, high quantity, high volume roles at the bottom. The majority of where people work in an enterprise level, that middle 70%, often psychometric data was not able to access that group because everything needs to be job relevant. It's great if you can assess an individual, but it only matters if their talents are relevant to a job. So if you think about the changing nature of work, you can have a salesperson that 6 months ago, the company was doing challenger sales methodology, but now they want to be more customer-centric and they want to be solution selling. So the talents that somebody needed before may have been high levels of assertiveness and it may have been high levels of execution. Now to be a top performer in the organization, they need high degree of persuasion and communication. And so at Plum, what we're able to do is understand your people by quantifying all of their talents and quantify in 8 minutes all of the needs of the roles through an automated job analysis, and then use AI to scale that system to create match scores. So you can have Emily, who's a front-end developer currently at an organization that no longer wants front-end developers. They only want full-stack developers because that's how they're going to be agile. And instead of either upskilling Emily or showing her the door, they could see Emily would be an amazing technical sales rep because she has high persuasion, or be amazing on the product and innovation team because she has high degrees of innovation, or amazing in operations because she has high degree of execution. All predictions that could not have surfaced if we had been relying on poor quality skills and knowledge and social media data. And so at Plum, we are combining AI with advanced industrial organizational psychology to help enterprise companies have employee-driven career pathing and career mobility, to have personalized professional development. Once you know the person and the role, you can tailor the development to their needs. And it just so happens, while you have all the data of all of your employees, you can identify early and emerging leaders. The first day somebody walks into your organization, you can identify your top performers and make sure that you nurture them and keep them in your organization instead of waiting until they're at the director level and probably have already left the organization. Thank you very much.